Welcome back to the Free Play Arcade Podcast. I am Chris Delp, the community liaison of Free Play Arcade, and I have another community liaison with me.
That is me. I am Arthur Williams, the other community liaison for Free Play Arcade.
Yeah, he's about to go to New York City. You excited about that?
I actually very much am. I'm going to be playing in a Street Fighter tournament with a exciting announcement. When does this podcast air?
After your announcement, I do believe.
I think we could record the announcement. Wait, hold on. You're going this weekend, right?
The announcement is on Saturday.
Okay, so yes, this
is
Thursday. We're safe. We have confirmed with the producer. We have checked with the U.S. mail. Everything is going to work out fine. For you to announce this right now.
This is Corey, our CEO and president of Free Play Arcade.
That is your big announcement right there.
That's it. I have reaffirmed my title that I had before as I called a board meeting with myself and I said, boom. Yes. President again.
Yes.
All right.
Despite the hair, this is indeed.
So actually, let me knock that out really quick.
CEO.
I did have a Britney Spears level meltdown.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is the announcement.
TMZ was there. I shaved my head. I had to get a stylist to kind of finish it up for me. It was a big scene, but everything is okay now.
Did you smash any windows while you were there?
Just, I did grab kind of like my seat and just start wrecking it and running around town. I've done it before. It is embarrassing, but it happens. So.
It's a good like once every 3 years sort of journey.
I mean, it's like a reset, right? Yeah. So we've got 3 years. So let's go.
All right, so to start this 3-year period out right, Free Play Arcade is proud to be hosting the finals of next year's Jazzy Circuit Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Tournament.
So we've talked about the Jazzy Circuit before. It's reinvigorated, revitalized interest in Third Strike. And this year it's going to be at Defend the North in New York, where you're about to go.
Yes, I am in the pools. I had to work today, and so I couldn't actually get out to New York till tomorrow. So I have about 2 hours between my plane's theoretical landing time and having to play in a tournament. I am hoping to make it because I really want to parry something and maybe combo into an EX move. Who knows?
And of course, those are Third Strike references for those of you at home.
Yes.
Right, and of course, this is after the actual tournament and announcement have actually happened. So you already know that Arthur Williams was indeed the champion.
He won the entire thing. And
it was a shocking event, but congratulations there.
On the other hand, you also know that I went 0-2, missed the tournament completely because my flight got delayed,
which made the announcement a little awkward after he won the whole thing. So next year's coming to Free Play.
Yes.
There is going to be a next year. That's part of the announcement.
Yeah,
it's like they're going to do a season 2 of Jazzy Circuit.
The reason it happened this year to begin with is exactly 20 years after Street Fighter 3 Third Strike's first release in 1999. I think it was technically a month ago. This weekend culminates in the finale, the championship, and it did well enough to where everyone's excited and looking forward to next year. I'm really excited. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, really the reason it happened was Anthony Chu, aka Mutant XP out in New York City, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making the Jazzy Circuit a thing. So it was so successful on our end, we went to Mutant XP ourselves and said we would love to have a season 2 of Jazzy Circuit. We would love to facilitate it in any way that we can. If you need a place and need a venue to have the finals again, for the sake of having season 2 of Jazzy Circuit, let's do it. Come on out here.
And I mean, though there are a few other places, there aren't that many places that can really do it like we can do it, right? We've got a ton of Versus Cities, a ton of copies of Third Strike, both of which are getting pretty rare in the world.
And we've actually picked up a couple extra Third Strikes since we agreed to run the event. And we may get a couple more just to make sure that we have enough Third Strike.
I don't know who could handle it as far as a publicly open venue quite like we can. No, a fighting game major, yes, but
but we bring stuff that the big conventions don't have, which is we've got this full bar experience, we've got a full restaurant experience.
Well, yes,
and I think that's really cool, and I think in the future you're going to see these convention centers building it up, their bars and their restaurants better, because a lot of them are still kind of left to where they have a snack bar, and you might have a cart with some beers on it that are all old, stale, and run by some sort of event company that has absolutely no soul. It's different at Free Play. I don't mean I'm not trying to throw shade. It's the truth, and
it is the truth. I usually find the on venue options for particularly drinking a little bit lacking.
And so it's really fun to be able to have it at what is one of the best bars in town, and it just happens to be a retro arcade bar. So I'm really pumped about it. I think that's really, really amazing, and it's going to be a different experience for us too, because we are used to running our big tournaments all by ourselves. We're going to have some help coming in. We're going to be just, facilitating it as almost like a venue. So
yeah, we're
that's
working
exciting.
with Mutant XP. We're working with NYC Furby. He'll be running a stream for the event. I think we're going to be running our own stream because we'll have a lot of Third Strike to be streamed.
We'll need at least 2 streams
Yes.
during this event. And it's going to be a big, interesting experience. But
It might be the biggest Third Strike tournament ever. That's what Mutant XP is hoping for.
Well,
He's hoping for literally the biggest turnout ever.
We hope so. I mean, we're ready to facilitate that. We'll have enough machines. We'll have enough space, beer, everything you could possibly need for a good Third Strike tournament.
Are you sure we'll have enough beer? Can we order some extra?
Well, I mean, we order some every week, so
Excellent.
before that week we'll order extra. But
that's what I like to hear.
But that's coming 2020, right?
2020.
Yes,
So they're gonna do another season, and it'll be a few months, I think, after our spring series. We'll be hosting, hopefully, I mean, assuming everything goes normally and everything, the Jazzy Circuit Finals, Free Play Arlington.
Yeah, we're also going
summer
to end up getting the last points qualifying event too. So that one might be a mad rush for the who's going to qualify for the automatic berth. But anyway, that was our impromptu announcement. It had nothing to do with this podcast. So I should say that you are listening to the Free Play Arcade podcast. Wherever you're listening to it now, you can subscribe. If it's on YouTube, there's a cool bell icon that I get paid almost 1 yen every time you click it. So go ahead and click it an odd number of times so that it's active.
I mean, Chris has made almost $14 this year.
That's right. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, whom I believe we lost a Just Water account. It is now just Jaden Smith.
Yeah, so Just Water, we're still fans, but we're now Jaden Smith sponsored directly.
Yes.
So the Karate Kid himself
So
is sponsoring this podcast.
Refreshing.
Freshly squeezed Jaden Smith.
When I do get the cease and desist from Jaden Smith, I will update this podcast. As you know, I am an attorney and I will respond appropriately, and we will handle it at that point. So
Okay.
Really excited about that coming up.
Yeah.
Lots of big things brewing at Free Play, but
Let's do mailbag.
we haven't done a mailbag, and it's kind of like it.
I've been doing long play videos. I would like to get insulted now.
The mailbag is my favorite thing about the mailbag podcast is it's a good chance for us to reflect, recenter ourselves, and really just kind of think about things we might not be thinking about every day. But what's kind of interesting, the first question, and this has come up both as comments on YouTube and direct messages and emails that I've received. They actually want you to kind of do a very condensed, and we've done various versions of this, life story, background, like what led you to working at Free Play, both of you. And mine is, I'll briefly talk about mine. I've had a whole podcast about my life already, so I'm very, very narcissistic. But y'all,
very
not
condensed.
as much.
How much are you giving me on the clock for this?
So, I mean, take up a few minutes, just kind of talk about, I think the major thing that they're looking for is like your professional life that led you to being an arcade community liaison kind of thing.
Man, okay, so I worked in the printing industry before this, which really gave me nothing but extra time. Really, it was for my hobbyist life, and I grew up in arcades, as many of us did. I was born in 1980, spent my entire life living in an arcade, basically. I moved to the Dallas area in 95, 96, 15, 16 years old. Started going out to and winning tournaments. I had won tournaments in my local Louisiana region, but if local Louisiana champion really doesn't mean that much. I moved to Dallas. The winning continued. I won at GameWorks Grapevine. That gave me a year's worth of free play at GameWorks Grapevine.
Nice.
Which I estimated the actual value of that, given how much I played.
To you, yeah. It
was over $100,000 in play. I mean, considering it was $4 a play of Indy 500 at the time.
GameWorks, of course, was a great but very expensive arcade.
Very expensive.
A years of play is insane.
Yeah.
Really.
And so in 1999, I just went nuts, played absolutely every game. That's why I got so good at NBA Jam and NBA Hang Time and NFL Blitz, and Tekken Tag Tournament came out that year. A lot of my forte is right in that period, towards the end of that year. At that point, I knew everybody. I was winning the tournaments. I was doing tricks like playing NFL Blitz blindfolded. I was known for that. I had to leave GameWorks Grapevine because it was no longer free, and it would cost $100,000 to do that again the next year. So I decided to play a game that I could actually, continue to win and play. So that was Tekken Tag Tournament. I had never really played a fighting game before. I just sort of forced myself to learn it through brute force, and it went well. I traveled the country. Again, my printing job required none of my time, so I could leave on the weekends. If I needed to leave a day early, I would just tell them and take it unpaid. So yeah, I did all the studying and practicing. I practiced probably 10 hours a day. If you're wondering, that did mean I brought my PS2 to work and practiced there, and import PS2 at that. Yeah, I traveled the tournament doing the fighting game thing. This is pre-Evo. So had lots of organizing fighting game experience from that, playing fighting game experience from that, met all the pioneers of esports and particularly the fighting game scene in that period. So, virtually all the major tournaments, owners, the famous people right now, they were just kids like me back then.
Well, and it's kind of interesting because most people who know esports know this, but like the early 2000s were the first esports peak, right? So esports has this huge catastrophic climb. I mean, it's small compared to what we have today, but it was getting huge really, really fast. People were actually learning to like, this might be a job one day, that kind of stuff. And then it had this kind of collapse in the mid 2000s where it kind of reinvigorated itself to what we have now, which is hundreds of millions of dollars in esports, which I don't think anyone could have possibly seen. But
it's absurd right now.
It's kind of nice though.
Yeah.
You participated in that first wave where esports was kind of built.
Yeah, it was certainly never referred to that way. It was just us nerds playing fighting games wherever we could. For my part, I organized the tournament in Texas 2 and 3 in my own apartment clubhouse, which its claim to fame is it had a movie theater. So as far as I know, we are the first, or my tournament was the first one to project the finals and everything.
You had it on a big screen?
In a big screen,
Nice.
yeah. Projected it. We had a CRT underneath. It projected up on the big screen and had stadium seating. So we
That was
had
a good
it.
finals, yeah.
Yeah, we had like the original, esports event like that. It was
Ahead of
really
your
cool.
time.
It definitely was. I remember the pop-offs in the audience being something I'll never forget as they're, basically watching a movie and we're playing. I couldn't believe it. So that happened. I dropped out of the Tekken scene because, fighting game players be salty.
Well, and it's a huge time commitment to play.
It sure was.
I mean, competitive gaming is so hard because of how much you have to work for it. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly, when you have things and you become an adult and you have things like bills and stuff, it's a weird balancing act that you have to play. And so it's easy for it to kind of fall by the wayside.
It was always a passion. I never really had any desire to get money from it.
Right.
So, I mean, if I won a tournament and I won prize money, the prize money was not any. It might play for my flight. That was what it was.
Well, there was something beautiful about that period too, which I was playing a game at the time that had more money in it. But there's something beautiful about people just hoping to break even going to a tournament, and you've got like the 5 or 6 best players there, and all of them are just like, man, I hope I break even this time. There's something really beautiful about that. Okay, so it doesn't sound like your professional career was necessarily the one that got you.
The only thing that my professional career the only thing that it did was it just gave me all this ample time. I would do my work.
Right.
I would be very efficient. Printing is as boring as it sounds. I was very good at it because it's not very hard. So I would get my work done in record time, and then I would just have time to idle. So that would let me study the next fighting game or whatever it would be to lead me to this. And eventually, when free play becomes a thing, it let me start the community group and be so active on it that I could just sort of hold the fort while the community formed around what I was doing.
Well, and I mean, props to your former employer, right? Because clearly, you were doing a great job by them, but they weren't the type that was going to squeeze you to death. They were going to give you the time and just respect your work, right?
Yeah, as long as the work got done, that's what they cared about, and the work definitely got done and never wavered, and the accolades mean nothing when you're just, like if you flip the best burger at McDonald's, then congratulations.
Nice. But I see what you're saying.
Keep flipping that burger, I guess. But that's it.
It was, and I guess it was pretty much the same day in, day out for you. You kind of had it,
yes,
at that point figured out on autopilot. So you had plenty of time to mess around, which that was actually asked to me this weekend, and someone asked me who the very first customer was, and I was like, that's really funny because I actually know who it is. It was Chris. He works for us now, so that was really cool. So I guess what you're saying is to someone who would be interested in trying to eventually have your job somehow, is to really love the source material, and that's, I mean, you know, that's kind of the way, right? Because I mean, you can't really look at the end goal and find your way there. I don't believe. What you can do is find the games. When we're talking about games, I'm sure in some form or fashion, whether they're arcade games, console games, PC games, esports in general. If that's the way you feel and you want to pursue a career in that, don't expect a lot of money. Also, don't expect a lot of money. Like just jump into it and jump into the organizational part. Volunteer to be a tournament organizer. Volunteer to do commentary. Work on your commentary. You might need to. You know, make sure you know your games. But also, there's a lot of support help needed, and not necessarily a lot of money going towards that support. So if you learn to produce your stream, run a tournament, again, commentate. Commentate's the one that like everybody kind of gets. Right.
But yeah, kind of.
Well, we're not saying everyone's good at it. They just know that it's a necessary thing.
Right, but there's so many little parts of these productions and events, and doing the events, and obviously playing and going O2 and learning, you know, that's all a part of it as well. That supports your scene, but it also gets you in the door. It lets you meet the right people, and that's where you will find your opportunities.
Well, and I will say that early in the free play existence, right? Like, we had never really contemplated. We just thought it might be a cool place for people to hang out. I guess that other one's going to be mine. I don't know what it is, but
unless it's an awful lot of cream.
Sea salt jasmine, it looks like.
Okay, I'm in. I'll do it. I'll drink it. I don't know what it is, but we had no expectations of a community. And of course, after we finished the first free play, we were just kind of like, you know, exhausted on every front. And I will never forget being first skeptical when you came in and you started doing stuff, like just naturally skeptical.
Yeah.
And then seeing you come and do it, and just, you know,
I had assumed you would be skeptical. That's why I went right to you.
Well, and then very shortly thereafter, I started feeling really bad because we had no budget for that kind of thing. But you were just out there like crushing it. It was awesome.
And that's the thing. Don't expect it. Like
right. Well, I think that's the real thing. And I mean, I think
make do, make it happen.
In many ways, it's all about figuring out a way to work with what exists around you, right? Like if you have an arcade or you have a community or something.
If you have an arcade, you need to support it because you know, you're in a unfortunate minority. So if you care about arcade games, you need to get out there and support it. And I was happy to. You guys really didn't have that experience running arcade events at the time. You were worried about, like, you know, keeping and maintaining and curating the best arcade in the country. And you succeeded, in my opinion. I was more than happy to help run a little event here and there, just because, you know, it's an excuse to get people together, and that's another thing that I find incredibly fun.
Well, and so and then here we are. So yeah,
it's a lot though.
Well,
oh my god,
yeah,
it's a lot.
I guess, I mean, I think everyone at this table is pretty tired right now. We've had a long couple of weeks.
Not after I drink this just coffee.
Well, this is like tea. I didn't know I ordered tea. But it's delicious. It's amazing.
I don't know if it's what you ordered. I just know that I didn't order anything.
There we go.
2 drinks in that caddy.
It's got to be mine. It's really good. I'm excited about it. But yeah, it's
well. If you're curious, I ordered coffee black.
Well, you know what? So
all I'm saying is maybe the caddy that came to us was not the drinks that you ordered.
Well, I want to also point out that if anyone sees this on the internet and they're in like China, apparently 85C has a really bad reputation in China. So we not support them in China. It's some sort of totally separate organization in the U.S. Yeah, I guess. I don't really know. There's a lot of drama.
That's interesting.
Because, you know, they popped up in the U.S. like as like a shadow company. No one knew who was running it or anything. There's like Cayman Islands involvement. Wow, this podcast just got way off the rails. But anyways.
Arthur, why are you here?
I'm here to... I joined this company in order to one day learn the history by 85C. That'll be next week's podcast.
We're trying to get to the source of this tea coffee thing that is very sweet. I bet Chris's is pretty sweet as well.
Somewhat similar to Chris. I was born in 81, and I spent my life playing video games, going to arcades, had a great time doing so. About when I got to college, I decided I wanted to play more video games more seriously a little bit, and the best place to do that was in arcades. I lived in Dallas, but I was in Austin pretty frequently. I played at Valley View Mall in Dallas. There were two different competing arcades. There was the Cyber Zone and the one that I liked, Animation Town.
There it is.
Yeah. And I'd go to those pretty frequently, but I went to Einstein's in Austin pretty frequently. And, a couple times a year I'd go to Stargate in Houston. And all the arcades had a different flavor, a different game, different players, obviously. I was studying computer science and playing video games, having a good time, and eventually I got really sick. I had a really fun thing in my head that would hemorrhage, and it was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
It's terrifying.
Anyway, so I get better. I work as a IT guy, I do contract coding stuff, and I'm playing the occasional video game, and I get sick again. And then shortly after getting sick a second time, I was not terribly able to hold down a job for a bit. So I ended up hilariously playing a lot of Street Fighter and getting a lot better at it. I'd been playing various versions of the game for a while, and by this point it was Street Fighter 4 was the game du jour, and I played Honda, and me and my roommate would practice a lot and try to get good at the game.
Who was your roommate at the
time?
time?
My roommate at the time was Adnan Dagala, and he went by Find My Farms at tournaments. Well, anyway, so this same time, there were a few guys trying to run a large tournament in Dallas, and I helped them out and did some marketing for them and ran pools and et cetera, and planned the tournaments out. Absolute Battle. So starting with the first Absolute Battle, I was always there, and the year that I had a whole bunch of problems, we actually didn't run an Absolute Battle. I don't know if it was exactly because I was sick, because there was also a couple other guys that got out of it at that same time. We came back the next year and ran Absolute Battle. And after that, shortly, I'd gained a little bit of notoriety playing the game, and some friends of mine had worked for Brady Games. So they were writing the book for Ultra Street Fighter 4 and offered me to write some of it. And I ended up writing, I don't know, a third-ish, maybe less of the book. You can still purchase it on Amazon, but I think they're sold out of real copies. I don't know.
I look it up sometimes just to see your name.
Oh, thank you. It was kind of funny when I was...
Is that one of those things that, like, just the next patch, like, invalidates your entire book?
No, most of the stuff is kind of abstract.
Okay.
And
so it's just like good fighting game mechanics?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And character ideas. But at the same time, there's definitely some stuff that no longer works. I'm trying to think of a specific. Aside from frame data, well, not important.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, so anyway, I finished writing that book and was kind of unemployed at the time and occasionally working contracts doing mostly PHP, whatever. The guys that ran... Yes. No, it's a
web development drug.
I knew that.
Yeah, PHP is great. I don't think it's used by anyone ever anymore, probably. And I say that, and at the same time, there's going to be angry comments about how I use PHP every day. It
had a good run.
It was fine. I liked it. It was plenty powerful enough for my taste, and it was close enough to seed where it's easy to learn.
Should be. I'm pretty sure it's a horse tranquilizer.
Right. Takes that out.
All right. So we kept running Absolute Battle, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was kind of cool. And so... two of the guys that were still involved from ye olden days decided to partner with a third player to make an arcade. And I ended up working at the arcade for a while and owning a tenth of it. And Versus Gameplay was the competitor-ish, not really, to Free Play. It was two whole different experiences.
Yeah.
Versus Gameplay was about like local consoleized esports, and we had some arcade machines. And they were all on a free-to-play model. And Free Play is about, cool bar with 80s atmosphere and whole lot more arcade games and no consoles.
Yeah, I thought that the comparison was always a little unfair to both sides.
Yeah, you guys were definitely doing your own thing.
Because the arcade at Versus was almost like a bonus to the core kind of like competitive aspect to it.
Yeah, whereas if I wanted to go play the latest Street Fighter game and get good and find my avenue into the competitions of esports during that period, I would I knew I would go to versus gameplay.
And likewise, I was at Free Play on several occasions just to play some old games.
Right, you were that
have
guy
a good
playing
time.
Cammy.
Well, it's really funny because I was
Also, a ton of other games.
I was watching y'all streams a lot. I used to work Saturday nights at Richardson back when we first opened as the tech, and so I'd be in the back. And especially like I remember the Street Fighter V launch tournament and various other things. It actually educated me a lot about streaming. Like I was just sitting there watching y'all stuff, and I was like, "This is pretty awesome." And
Yeah,
pretty
it was a great time. I had a good time working it. The other three owners, they loved having the arcade, but all of them had real full-time work and couldn't devote themselves fully to the arcade. And eventually, it was in a mall that was sort of collapsing.
So I was like, eventually we should talk about the collapse of malls in America. And y'all. I mean, what was really cool, and I don't know if I'll ever get the chance. I've always like in the back of my head been like, I want to do a mall arcade, and I don't know if I ever will, but. Y'all had a pretty cool mall arcade.
Yeah,
like,
it was fun. It was a nice
pretty
place.
Awesome spot.
Just needed a mall to go around it.
Yeah, the mall itself was dying while while versus gameplay was doing pretty well. But as the mall did worse and worse, the arcade did worse and worse, and the others were kind of seeming to want to get out of it because it wasn't doing that great. And we had a really good deal on rent and weren't necessarily going to want to pay the same amount of money for much, much less space. When one day Chris asked me if I wanted to meet with Corey. And I assumed at the time that it was going to be about working some sort of collaborate tournament events. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Well, anyway, he offers me the job as community liaison. And I think about it, and I'm like, it seems like a logical career move. Paid more, and the company was going places where mine felt like it was winding down at the time. So now I work for Free Play.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because
it.
At the time, Chris and I were like, we'd been talking a lot about how to figure out streaming even better. Like we were improving as much as we could. And the person that I knew who had streamed and that I had watched before, and I was like, that I liked was you. Like,
well, thank you.
It was in my head that like I was like, because what was amazing to me is y'all would have top quality produced streams even on the small games or the 13-player tournaments and stuff like that, in addition to the 100+ launch game tournaments. And I always watched that, and I was like, that's really well produced. So that was kind of why in the back of my head I knew of you.
I feel like the trick to doing that is to make your tournament like you're doing it for the big event, and then continue to utilize all the assets that you made, so you can make even a small event that has 15 guys seem like a really cool affair. And if you have a good quality stream production and artistic assets and a guy that can make you art, then that's not too hard to do, and everything looks good, and streams are great if you do that.
Yeah, and for my sake, when Corey came to me and asked about it, you were the only name on my radar at all, and it was because you had such a similar background to me. I mean, it feels like you're a long lost cousin. To be honest with you, we know the same people, we grew up in the same way, about the same age. We both spent time touring, playing fighting games. I did not have the hemorrhaging issue. That's unfortunate. So if you want to be community liaison,
I wouldn't
might go into
recommend
like
you don't
grave brain injury, but that's
I think though what we've picked up on, I think ultimately it's probably the most important thread is to absolutely love the games
and be willing to just run with it and do it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like both of us were not getting paid to organize tournaments, to do the things that keep all of these players getting together. We both spent time at the House of Goons, just a private house that we're all like working together to make sure people come out to over and over again.
Well, and I think the important thing is where that was the start as our generation grows up. It's clear now that, I think our whole generation is going to want to hang out at a place that's not necessarily just a house, but something.
No, there's
else.
better now. There's better now.
And there's a
what
market.
I'm saying is don't let the fact that you can't start with your dream job stop you from working.
Right. Well, what I'm trying to do is
it.
inspire people who might be like, that'll never exist or anything. These home things exist, and that's what everyone wants to do. What I want to say is, I think ultimately everyone wants a place
you want public.
That's public, open, commercial. Like, not necessarily, driven to support the players, not necessarily driven by like profit or anything. I don't want to be Dave and Buster's, but it's important that like, you have a place that isn't just someone's house, because once that person fades,
need
the whole thing dies.
A calling card to bring in new players to your community, whatever that community is. And just having it at somebody's house is not good enough. And it wasn't good enough for us back in the day either. The thing that we had in common when we were doing those days, those were modern fighting games that were getting corporate dollars to advertise, to get new players to play. So we had an unending stream of new players. But unless you have some sort of corporate backing on the back end that you're not really thinking about, keeping people coming into your game, you need to really curate that. And having a good open place, it's basically a party every day, which is free play.
Yeah, that is works well.
That helps. It's a symbiotic relationship. What I do does not exist without free play, and that's just the way it is.
So that was our long talk about where y'all came from, and of course I was an attorney ball. There's other podcasts you can watch to get my background, but ultimately it was just, I mean, for me it was a love for video games and just wanting a cool place to play video games. But I kind of did this on purpose. So the next topic on this podcast is going to be kind of controversial because I wanted to bury it just a little bit because we rag on Stern so much.
Oh, okay.
So today,
favorite Stern games?
Stern has announced
a
groundbreaking change. And the producer's like, I mean, I'm going to have to chop this podcast in half.
This is going to be some garbage about Star Wars or something.
Groundbreaking release. Stern has finally come up with their home model. It's a home pinball, and it's going to blow your minds. Now imagine a worse version of the games you kind of are okay about. And
a cheaper version, maybe?
It's smaller, and it is only $800 cheaper. So it's $4,500 for a home model, worse in every way version of Stern classics like Stern Star Wars, and they're saying they're going to release some other stuff. So this is their big new release. They made a big.
Are they
huge deal about
partnering
this.
with Arcade 1-Up?
Maybe so. I mean, they made a big huge deal about this release. They said we're going to announce something amazing today.
I had assumed it was going to be a Rick and Morty table because that's what I heard.
That's what I've heard as well.
Right.
I was going to say Rick and Morty.
Yeah, there was the post on the community group. You were like, looks like this could be happening. No. The big announcement is a mini version of pinball tables at a price that's about the same as the pro models. So in Stern has a pro, a premium, and a limited of each of their pinballs. This is a new version called, and I'm not making this up, it's called the Pin. And Stern has now trademarked the word pin.
You can't trademark.
Did they pull it off?
That's what it says. It says
just pin.
I assume so.
Well, sorry, Bic.
So someone has just released the Star Wars pin, and it's Star Wars is trademarked, and the word pin, PIN, is trademarked after it. So Stern is. But
I'm gonna consult one of my lawyer friends. How did they pull that off?
It won't survive the first lawsuit, and I'll happily advise Stern's non-existent attorneys if they would like, because they wasted a bunch of time, and I mean, I have half of mine just to destroy the trademark just for fun. Oh my gosh.
Well, whoever does it's doing a service to the English language.
Yeah. So this is their new home version of pinball, and it's called the Pin.
But why is it $800 cheaper to be a worse product?
Much worse too.
I mean, if it was slightly worse for slightly less money, I could see it.
Well, if you go read the comments online, people are pretty upset. So people were expecting a home Stern to come out in the next couple of years, and they were expecting a price point between $2,500 and $3,000. And that might have been slightly unrealistic, just because other places have been trying to make these home pinballs, and they've all had to charge more than that. It cost, because the real thing is, even at Stern scale, it costs like $5,000 to make a pinball.
Pinball is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And so, yeah, they have. I guess their plan here is to make more. Well, yes, to make more money off of a worse quality product. I will say this will be a slightly nice thing for Stern. I think that their pro models, before their last few batches where they made the pro significantly worse than their premium, but I think their pro models in the past were some of the best deals in the entire world. Often the pro would be as good or better than the premium. It would flow better. It wouldn't have as much junk on the table. It would be, the stuff that it was missing was just kind extra toys and stuff.
Right,
that didn't matter.
Overproduced.
Right. So
silliness.
We have happily bought a bunch of pros. We have premiums too, and we have LEs too.
Tron LE.
Yeah.
I get a compliment on that. Like
Isn't that
every
cool?
single time I do anything, it's like, did you know how good this Tron machine is? Yes, I heard.
Well, and that's one of 400 ever, and we've talked about how that's going to be the rarest. But yeah, so we try to pick and choose the best of each pinball. Like our competitors, not to necessarily just be mean to them for no reason, but we'll often they'll either check the all LE or premium box without regard to what actually is best, just so that they can say that they have it. We try to generally, and for example, Walking Dead, I find that the Pro is the best version. That kind of stuff. We try to actually pick and choose what's going to be best, and we do our best on that. So the Pro, especially if you have a good dealer, it will cost you like $5,500 at most, $5,200 if it's maybe an older unit or one that they're just trying to liquidate the stock on. So yes, Stern has announced it's going to be $4,500 to $4,800 depending on the version, and it's called the Pin. The first one's going to be a Star Wars. They are going to allegedly be releasing a lot more, and everyone's just talking about how $4,500 you can probably find like an open box version of the Pro model, and you can find real versions of these pinballs, and people are very, very upset about it. And it's obviously a cash grab and all of that.
And here's the question I have: are these games going to be substantially different from the real versions?
Just worse in every way.
But I mean, sometimes
Just
you have the
smaller
Pro
too,
version
right?
better than the limited version.
Yeah, well...
What I'm worried about is occasionally, or at some point, one of these will be the right version of the pinball table.
Now, that would be really interesting. One of the ways Stern is saving on their licensing or release... Oh, no. I mean, I'm looking at this table. This is like when Macy's would release a $1,000 pinball table. It's worse in every way, both in terms of the kind of schlocky new stuff they put on pins, like extra screens and stuff, but also in terms of just the design and flow is crazy. It's really a quite basic pinball. And I'm reminded of someone made, and I'll have to look this up, the Spooky Jetsons or something like that. Spooky Pinball made a contract table for Domino's and Jetson, and they made a Jetsons that were supposed to be like home use type pinballs, and they sold them for like $4,500. And you know what? I think that's kind of cute too. But at the end of the day, if there's a much better version for $800 more, like I don't
recall playing the Spooky Jetsons in another form either.
Well,
that was the intended form.
It never existed in another way. It was designed specifically and explicitly for those people, for the home use market.
So it's the $4,500 home console version, back when the console ports were garbage.
Well, yeah, and it looks. I mean, it looks like if they were coming to market with this 1,000 less or so, it looks like it would be kind of like an interesting home pinball. But knowing that there's a real Stern Star Wars out there, and it's a controversial table by itself. Some people hate it, some people love it. But
I feel of both ways about it. I come back to it. It's complex. It could not be more complex.
But everyone is, and yeah, the internet is generally upset that the word pin is trademarked.
Copywritten?
Oh, and here we go. Now
the
big fight is what Stern actually trademarked. They're trying to pretend or act as though they trademarked the word pin. It looks like they trademarked the phrase "the pin" in relation to home use pinballs only. Still sounds probably nonsense.
I feel like that's too much for a trademark.
Well, I mean, trademark laws. Intellectual
I'm no
property in
lawyer.
this country is not exact. But yeah, the main complaint is an affordable home unit is not $4,500. Like, we're an arcade, right? And we buy a ton of arcade games every year, and we buy a ton of equipment. Spend more than $1 million every single year on arcade hardware. And so we exist in a different world. And I don't know what it would be like because I can't separate it. But I guess if y'all were looking, maybe I should phrase this to y'all. If y'all were looking for a home pinball, does $4,500 does that sound like just an absurd number for y'all? Or
if I was looking for a home pinball, what can I buy Paragon for? Let's find out.
While he researches that answer, I was a pretty big fan of Pac-Man in my day.
Right.
Would I spend $4,500 for Atari 2600 Pac-Man? Which is what we're talking about here.
Oh my gosh. No,
No, I would
just
not.
hearing you say $4,500 is really funny because I mean
3,000. That is probably the high end. Here's another one, 1,400.
Ooh, you could get 2 of them.
You know what? 1,400. That's not bad.
Maybe you need one in the bedroom.
Free local pinball
And the living room.
All right, local pickup. Where is this?
Well,
Minnesota can't do it.
I pulled up my distributor's price list really quick. And I won't say what distributor because Stern gets mad when distributors price things too low. So I don't want to. But I can buy a Stern Star Wars Pro right now, delivered to my door by freight and a commercial delivery and everything, for $5,000 flat. So we're talking a few $100.
Yeah,
separates a real commercial version versus a home use.
Ouch.
But I know why Stern is targeting the home market, right? We've talked about this before.
If it's worth whatever idiots are willing to pay for it, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to.
And they are calling you idiots, by the way.
Well, and the
With this
home
product,
market,
yes,
you don't have to support, right? So Stern, when they release a commercial version and they have whatever terrible warranty they have now, 6 months, in any busy place, the pinball's going to break like weekly. And sometimes, most of the time, we, like, for example, at Free Play, we'll just fix it because it's a fix that's easy. But if there's like a component that broke that's pricey and not on hand, we're going to hit them up for their warranty. And I've spoken with both Stern support and some of the other pinball manufacturer support that talk about how hard it is to do pinball support. But when you have a home user that's going to put 100 plays on maybe over 6 months, nothing's going to break. It's very easy. So
you say that, but at the same time, those Jersey Jack pins right out of the excuse me, those Jersey Jack pinball machines.
Yeah, don't say pin.
My bad.
We'll all get sued. We're going to jail right now.
But yeah, two Pirates of the Caribbean out of the box didn't work. Oh no.
So yeah,
pinball is not 100% the most reliable thing under any circumstance. So even it has to show up working right, and if it does, then yes, I believe that the average home user, is not likely to break anything easily. But it's got to be working to begin with, and if it does break, the guy that doesn't know how to solder,
that's true. I mean, giving maybe home style components could be a problem there for support. But yeah, that was their big new announcement. It was supposed to be just earth shattering, which
it's not.
Sort of.
it's really funny. I don't know.
Remember this? It's earth shattering for sure.
All right.
So one of the things that we can talk about kind of is, if you're trying to buy a home pinball, like, what should you get? Which I think at this point I have enough experience with every type of pinball that we can kind of talk about it. And I think the truth is, if I was going to advise someone to buy a pinball, both in terms of something that's going to keep its value, because in many ways when you're buying an arcade game or a pinball, you can look at kind of like collectible cars as a similar thing. Like, if you buy a collectible car, you're generally buying it for about what you think someone else will pay for it too.
Yes.
And if you put it in your garage and take care of it, you're not expecting it to really go down in value that much.
And you probably kind of enjoy taking care of it on the weekends.
Right. And the same is true.
I would hope so.
You've got a lot of maintenance, right? You've got a lot of work to keep it where it needs to be. And I think, honestly, if I was a true home user that wanted to get a pinball, I would start with some sort of the Rescue 911 or that kind of the Gottliebs in the early 90s, mid 90s. You can get them for like $1,200, $1,300. They're solid state. They're pretty reliable, but no one really likes them. But you can get into them really inexpensively, learn how to work on a pinball, fix it up, get it working exactly how you want, and then upgrade to, maybe one of those top pinballs, like go find your favorite Williams, your Adams family, or go buy
Adams family is number 2 on my list.
Go find a Stern Pro that's, hasn't been played very much, those kinds of things. But I do think it's important for someone who's buying a real pinball to get into something cheap to learn about. It's the same as like a collectible car, right? Like, if you're like, I always wanted a Corvette, everyone's gonna say, well, start with like, especially if it's a collectible one, they're gonna get you into the Stingrays before they're gonna let you get into those 50s, monster valuable things. So you can kind of learn about what it's like to own one, that kind of stuff. I think it's really important with pinball, given the maintenance requirements and given that each pinball kind of has its own special nuances, but overall the parts are generally the same. The method of operation is mostly the same. So there is also the big new kind of player on the block, which is the virtual pinballs or the stand-up pinballs. And I have spoken to some home users who really, really love these things. But what I will say on that point is, whatever you do not buy a commercial virtual pinball. Build it yourself. However it takes, whatever it takes to learn, build it yourself. I was talking to someone, and the average, and he's just a homebrew fan, but he builds his own virtual pinballs. He's in like $400 or $500 total to build a decent virtual pinball each. And the average like commercial virtual pinball, I've seen virtual pinballs selling more than real pinball.
Yes,
I mean, you're talking $5,000-$6,000. I go to the TPF every year and just can't stomach the amount of trash commercial home style use trying to get into man caves or whatever. And they're selling bad products. And
it just needs to be pinball if it's that.
Right.
I'm sorry. Part of pinball.
Well, that's the thing. If you're thinking about spending $4,000 or $5,000 on a virtual pinball, just go buy a real one. Or heck, take that $4,000 or $5,000. Take your time. Go over the Craigslist ads and the pin side ads. Get yourself 2 or 3 tables, 2 or 3 pinball tables. And the nice thing
if you want to play a video game, get a video game version of it.
Well, and if you ever see, and
Devil's Crush is pretty cool.
This is always the saddest thing. If you see a virtual pinball for sale on Craigslist, it's selling for like $600 or $700, $800 when and they're like, I got this 3 months ago. I paid $6,000. But if you buy a real pin. And if you do your research, you learn learn values. Yeah, like if you put $1,200, if you buy $1,200 or $1,300 on a Rescue 911 and you fix it up, you can maybe sell it for like $1,800 after playing it for a year. Like that's the kind of nice thing you can do in pinball.
The physicality of a pinball machine is where the value is. In this machine behind me, the beautiful cabinet work, the artwork, the literal artwork, on it. That's what a pinball machine is. And having an LCD display, I don't care how, good your LCD screen is, display like custom images is not the same as the beautiful backdrops and work that they put on Medieval Madness and how that castle looks and all the little things that go into it, not to mention playing it and having an actual little bitty cannonball bouncing around and trying to be the master of that impossible thing. I'm sorry, it doesn't translate. Even when I play video game pinball and I hit the magic shot at the right percentage and it always goes in, that's not pinball. Well, pinball is an actual baby cannonball and it flies through a ramp, and when you hit that magic shot,
feels good.
It feels good, and it was hard, and it was awesome.
Well, and this is maybe unfair because I do a lot of the marketing for Free Play, right? Most of it. And I say a lot of ridiculous things. Sometimes too much, sometimes not enough. But if I read that Stern is a global lifestyle brand one more time, which is how they start every one of their press releases, they say Stern, the global lifestyle brand. No, they're a pinball manufacturer. They should accept, like, that really frustrates me. Because if you ever read about Free Play, it's the best arcade ever. That's what we are. We're an arcade. And we don't, but, I mean, and I'm actually changing that right now. We're now Free Play, the global lifestyle brand, because we sell shirts in all countries. I don't know.
Just don't use the letters P, I, and N in any kind of context in that.
So that was the big new Stern announcement. It's terrible. It's the worst thing that's happened to pinball since whatever Stern did last time. And I don't really mean to pick on Stern. Some of their stuff is really amazing, and they have stuff down to a really big science. But as our industry leader, it's hard sometimes to deal with what they're doing. Which I also don't blame people for trying to make money. Where no one's ever I'm never against people making money, but I feel like, and it's something I have to struggle with and cope with every day. I feel like my generation and the generations to come are really focused on companies that aren't just trying to squeeze every dollar out of what they have. They're trying to build, build something to be good employers and not greedy necessarily. And Stern sure seems greedy, like every time that they do anything. Like it seems constant. All these new premiums where the premium version has something that you really want.
There's a way to be. I don't know. I confuse greed with being good business. There's a way to be a good business without just being greedy. Keeping quality in mind, keeping your customers in mind at the same time that you're trying to be a a profitable business. Yeah, no, I agree with your assessment. Anytime I think about Stern, I think of a customer unfriendly company. How about that?
If they pulled this off for $3,500, even if it looked the exact same, I think that the conversation we're having would be totally different. Because I think the difference between $3,500 and $4,500 is huge. And I think that, this constant focus of Stern to get into high-end game rooms, no matter what, like your home game rooms. That's why you have so many music pins from Stern, so many big market IPs, and it's just to try to attract that game room market.
Well,
I do get
it
that.
all makes sense. Like, you have Iron Maiden, a band from, did they start in the late 60s or the 70s? I can't even remember.
If it's not the 70s, I would be weird.
Send all of your Iron Maiden trivia facts to Arthur.
Yeah, please do. Arthur at freeplaying.com.
It's 75.
75. All right. I knew it was a little bit before I was born, but I wasn't quite sure how much. Point is, like, the fan of Iron Maiden, right? Those
Jason
guys,
Palmer, you can say his name.
Jason Palmer.
Hey, Jason.
Jason Palmer is of an age to where he has enough money to where he can afford, hey, this is my favorite band. Yeah, I can afford an $8,000 pinball table. For
Jason can afford way more than that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, sure he could, but they're not charging more. My point is, Stern knows their target audience, right? It's not pinball players, right? I really believe their target audience is fans of the license, and people that just want to have stuff that's related to this license, and it's a really expensive bauble that probably won't get much use as a pinball table. That's my theory on them right now, anyway.
Well, and it reminds me a little bit of a company that I think it's still kind of controversial, but I think they did it better or right. So Porsche, in the 2000s, all of a sudden they went from just making these primo sports cars to all of, they released their little smaller version. They released the wagon version and the Panamera. I don't know what it's called. They released a bunch of different stuff that was way outside of their normal, like, the 911 version, race car type stuff, the twin turbo, super fun stuff. And they were very public with it and saying, guys, we have to do the consumer friendly stuff to be able to do the fun stuff. And so when I look at Stern, I'm like, the fun stuff that is like the race cars and the stuff that all of the people, like the enthusiasts, love and eat up. And what I wonder about Stern is when we're going to get that second part. When are they going to care about the enthusiast? When are they going to make a version that's actually good rather than just focusing on this consumer part? Like, I feel like they've never done that second part of the equation. And it's probably a little unfair. Stern has some sort of army that goes around and plays pinball tournaments at bad locations and stuff. I don't know. I don't know what they do. Oh my gosh. So this is part 1 of Stern trashing.
Oh no.
No. Part 1?
It's like part 5.
Yeah.
Part 1 today. No, so Stern released, that was their big thing. And the mailbag is interesting, and we did get a bunch of people send us, like, as soon as they announced this, I think everyone just wanted us to rag on Stern because everyone's disappointed.
No problem there.
Over what happened.
You can always find something to complain about.
Well, and like, I guess I keep trying to walk it back a little bit, but I fall into that.
Well, it's tough because I do have some many good experience with Stern products.
Well, yeah, they make good stuff.
Some parts of them do. Like they have the best pinball designers ever working for them.
Yeah,
Steve Ritchie is working for them. They have all these incredible elements in place, and then they cut corners and hurt.
Well, and I heard just rumblings that Stern was disappointed with the sales of the new Black Knight table, which I think we actually have one in a box just on the other side of this wall.
Haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I've played it a little bit. I think the real thing, and everyone's saying that's why Stern's never going to do anything interesting because it never works. But I think to me, Stern totally, like, the marketing for Black Knight, like, they announced it and it was available like a month later or a few weeks later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it felt really like there was no real hype to build,
and it was right on the coattails of the Munsters,
right? Well, and
which
they
had more marketing.
Well, and they spent a ton marketing the Munsters, which I was at Free Play Arlington yesterday and played, and I was just kind of
sorry.
Well,
yeah.
Well, what's really funny, this is kind of interesting problem, and we're gonna have to wrap up the podcast soon. But so what's going on with the Munsters right now is, so we have a Munsters Premium.
It's waiting for a code update that may not be coming at all.
Well, yeah, it needs to be much better. But
yes.
The lower playfield was a total gimmick and
yes.
feels like an afterthought. But you kind of have to like, it's weird. So it's becoming like kind of magnetized.
Oh yeah, I've seen this. Yeah.
And the dirt, or not really dirt, it's like the shavings
Condensation.
and stuff that come off the coils underneath it, because it has a little mini playfield where you can play, is getting magnetized and stuck to the plastic or the Lexan or whatever they use to cover it. So our techs are having to go in there with dryer sheets to try to demagnetize this Lexan, because every time you hit the flippers down there, and if you've ever looked inside of a pinball table after a little bit, the coils, they kind of attract dust and dirt, and the coils are just magnets, right? Because they pull the thing and that's how it flips. So they slowly create all this kind of like magnetized debris, and so it's all just sticking to the darn blower playfield Lexan, and it's killing our techs to keep it going. And I will say, of course, and we always have to preface this, our pinballs get more play than almost anyone's, and
That's true.
so it might not be a
Incredible
problem, but yeah, we don't have a good solution for it yet. So that's our Stern Hate / Where We Came From podcast here.
Mailbag.
We got to 2 questions this time.
Right.
I was looking through. We have every one of these questions will take us 30-40 minutes to answer, but
That's because we talk a lot.
yeah, and we'll have to get back to these mailbags, because I think they're a lot of fun, and
I do too.
it really does kind of recenter me.
And
So
I was hoping someone would rip on my long plays.
well, and I do actually
happen.
hold on.
Keep long
I just
playing.
remembered our producer gave me a note to talk about right away at the beginning of this podcast that I forgot completely about. We recently had a comment on one of our series where we're going to all our warehouses and our different arcades, and this is the largest retro arcade collection we think that exists in the country, and our collection's always changing and everything, and some people might be stocking up. I don't know. We've got 1,000+ units right now in the collection, and someone made a comment that said, "There's no way this is the largest collection. These people that do Let's Play every year, they bring out all these games. Those are the biggest collections.
Those guys are the biggest.
Those definitely
That
are."
guy's got a point. That's a very good point.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Let's Play.
Corey can never hope to have as many games.
As Let's Play.
As whoever does those Let's Play.
That guy knows what's what.
I don't even know what that commenter was doing, because every Let's Play you might notice a huge banner that says "Free Play Arcade is the best arcade ever." 30 to 40 games what's kind of funny
I don't know. Did you see that Akon lineup though?
that one was great.
That
was huge.
Whoever
was
has
huge,
that.
but all the games were like completely different.
I
It was
know.
like the Japanese version of that same.
It was
Arcade
like
owner.
a themed,
Yeah.
unbelievable. So we do Let's Play. That is us. I mean, it's us and Estel, the doc we've talked about previously on the podcast. We each bring 30 to 40 games. And there's some other community stuff, but I will say that Estel has a great collection. I'm hoping
Sure
sometime
does.
on YouTube we get to do a walkthrough of Estel's collection, because he has a great arcade and great storage collection. He's got a lot of really cool stuff. So I will say he's got a great collection. And if I was not an arcade operator, I hope my collection looks something like that. But as an arcade operator, I can say we have far more. But yeah, we have, because we have 7 copies of Galaga. We have 7 copies of Miss Pac-Man. We've got, copies of games you wouldn't expect, like R-Type. We've got multiple R-Types. We've got tons and tons of stuff.
You can check our video walkthroughs on this YouTube page. For walkthroughs of most, if not all, of our warehouses. We're adding games all the time, much to Kelsey's chagrin.
Well, and I will say that Let's Play does have one of the greatest arcade convention lineups that exist in the country, and I've been to quite a few, and I think that's
It's the best I've ever seen.
It's certainly, like, you'll go to other conventions, and like what I was just saying, you'll see like 8 copies of Galaga. You'll see a bunch, because people are just bringing stuff from home to get in for free. They're getting badges for bringing games. Let's Play's not really like that. It's 2 of the best collections in the country, one being ours, one being Estel's, working together to create an awesome experience, and then bringing some other community people in. And Let's Play, the actual convention, has kind of acquired some pieces to make it easier on both of us who bring games. But to that commenter, you're correct. Whoever does that Let's Play must have a great, huge, massive collection. Maybe
Spoiler alert, it's him.
one of the best in the country.
Let's wrap this bad boy up.
We don't say that lightly, and that's look. That was kind of like a third question we did in like 5, 6, 7 minutes. So
Yeah.
All right.
for the Free Play Arcade podcast, this is a mailbag episode number 78.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening now. Hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, hit the notification little bell. That's really sweet. And also, this is Chris Delp, Community Liaison of Free Play Arcade.
I'm Arthur Williams, other community liaison of Free Play Arcade.
And I am the artist formerly known as Britney Spears. I'm going to go see if I can get any of this hair off. Until next time, guys.
We want the old hair back. Next time.
No,
next time, old hair back.
I have
That'll
a
be
wig.
impressive.
No, I don't have a wig. I have a beard wig, but that was for a whole other thing. All right, guys, we're out of here. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for watching.